Hello, everybody. This is the Overnight Mouse Party, number one. Tonight we have Gizzard Gary. How are you doing, Gary?
Doing pretty good. Congratulations on your new show. I can't wait to see if it's a hit.
Uh, the way things are trending, it's a big ask. Um, and Guns and Barbecue, how are you doing?
I am doing all right. Thank you for the invite. Congrats on the new show, on the new start, on the fresh beginnings. How are you, good sir?
I'm doing all right. Just trying to look up, which I forgot to do. Uh, G Webs had mentioned a zombie movie, and now I forget the name, and that kind of inspired tonight's chat. A zombie theme. It was kind of like Z Nation, but not Z Nation. Nation Z, the beginning, something like that, on Amazon. That's where I watched it. But we'll talk about that in a little bit. There's a link pinned to the top of the chat for this week's poll and something else. I've been cleaning a lot of brass the last couple days. So there's a picture of a jar of 10 millimeter brass. And I'm going to have everybody guess how many pieces of brass are in the jar. And you get one guess per person. First person that guesses correctly wins some sort of prize. I don't have a set prize just yet. And we'll announce a winner next Saturday. I was going to say next Wednesday. We're not doing Wednesdays anymore. Next Saturday on the Overnight Mouse Party. And if nobody guesses exactly, then maybe we'll do like a consolation prize for whoever got the closest. Oh, it's Apocalypse. Thank you, Justin Grimm. It's Apocalypse. That was the movie. Oh. So. And this week's poll is over there too. So vote in the poll. And we'll take a look at that here in just a minute also. But so far, G23 was out there earlier. Ozzy Orsmorn, Justin Grimm, Gizzard Gary, and Vulcan Rumble is here. Looking for a good source of news. I don't really watch the news anymore. I don't know. What news sources do you guys use? Or do you?
I get most of my news from DM Voss personally.
I get most of my news from Gizzard Gary.
It sounds like a death spiral.
A little bit of everything. Tell you the truth, I go all over social media. I start picking up usually tips and top stories off of X, to tell you the truth. That's usually where you first start hearing stuff. As far as where to verify, there's no one place to say, well, if I look here, I'll get the right answer. You've got to kind of hunt for that. There's no one place you can go. My opinion, anyway. There's no one news source that has all the truth. Nobody's that smart.
Yeah, I don't really watch the news, and I've been a lot happier since I stopped watching the news.
Local news is one thing. I'll get up and watch local news sometimes on the TV just to find out what's going on in the capital city or something, or weather forecast, junk like that. But And I've got my favorite local station that, well, my family's watched even since I was a little kid that I still watch, but the national stuff, CBS, NBC, ABC, PBS is BS. Well, it's in the name. That's why that's why they call it PBS. Uh, a lot of people go with a foreign news source like maybe Reuters or something like that, thinking it might be a bit more neutral.
What about you, Barbecue?
Pay attention to wars or anything like that. National news.
They got him.
Yeah, you knew too much.
That's right.
How you feeling, G-Webs? You feeling better?
What was the question? Oh,
How are you feeling?
what was the question though?
Oh, news. What news sources do you use?
Oh, okay. Let me go to that microphone. Is that better?
That's a lot better.
I imagine when I heard Gizzard talk about their going international or something is probably a good way. And then, but I just listen to PBS once in a while, and then the other stuff I get through just listening to everybody else, listening to whatever the Republicans are saying. So I don't try hard anymore. I just assume that a whole year or whole lifetime's worth of having them on both sides of the issue. You just know where the big players are going to be in the news. The only thing about international is they do have their agendas or whatever. So they're going to look at our news and talk about it through their filter. So I don't trust them alone either. I just use them as, more points of data, I guess.
Barbecue, you were kind of breaking up the whole time you were talking.
I kind of figured that I probably was breaking up because the last time that happened to me, where I just all of a sudden jumped out of StreamYard, turned out I was like Robody or something before that too. So, what I was trying to say is I don't watch the news. I don't have cable or anything, so don't really pay attention to it. The only news stuff I do consume is what pops up regarding two-way stuff, and that is just stuff that I'll catch from YouTube or possibly Instagram every once in a while. And when I say every once in a while, I mean from Instagram, that is. Primarily, it's just from the YouTubes, but then with that, it's not like I'm just like, oh, okay, this channel said this, so I'm just running with that. At that point, I look and see, did they source where they heard that piece of information or something like that? And then I'll go check out the source. And so I guess you could say at that point, I'm looking at maybe periodical news sources and double checking and things like that. But no matter what it is that I'm taking in, I'm applying my own rationale to whatever it is that I'm taking in. I'm not just hearing or reading something and going, oh, yep, what they said.
That's kind of the way I approach it now. I used to go every day. I'd look at MSN's page and look at their news stories and stuff. And I was always a little confused because the stories always kind of leaned one way, but they'd have polls and stuff, but when you looked at the polls, everybody that answered the polls leaned another way. And it seems strange to me that everybody that was, on one side were going to the other side for a news source. And I kind of realized that the way they were presenting their stories was almost like to get a reaction. So they were getting the views because people were upset and looking. And it serves the same purpose as people who like their content going to see what they're doing.
That's sort of like 9mm. People buy it and then they get upset.
Kind of, yeah. So I'll kind of look. I don't really watch a lot of news. I'll look more to see if something happened, whatever, see a story that something happened, and then not look at why they're telling me it happened. But, I know an event happened. And then if it's something that I think is significant enough, then I'll go in and then look for different stories to see why whatever happened.
Yeah. I mean, so I don't want to take us down the abortion debate or anything like that. This is just example of one of the most recent times that really stuck out to me that I think that I just use as an example to people. But during the debate, Trump had said that the Virginia governor said, oh, you could take the baby and put it off to the side while you decide what you want to do with it and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, man, that one seems a little far-fetched, even for Trump, holy cow. And so I went and I started doing some digging, and I actually found the radio show where they recorded it, and they actually videoed it where the Virginia governor said that. And I was like, holy cow. 'Cause I thought all right, Trump really stepped on his ding dong on that one. And then I was like, oh shit. Nope, that one was legit. Don't just believe headlines, or do some digging.
I agree. As we as people, as human beings, will kind of tend to, we'll have our point of view, and it can taint what we see in the world. Kind of a confirmation bias. I believe this way, so I will view news stories this way, whether it's the correct way or not. I don't know if that made any sense at all.
Well, in the end, everybody's going to give. It's kind of like if you tell 10 people in a room the same thing and have them repeat it to another person. Everybody's going to repeat a news story or deliver it, in their vein. So to get the full truth on any story, I think you have to consult a number of sources.
That's true. Here, back from my younger days. So one thing that would happen is when I was teaching karate, in karate club, and when the black belts would get together and have a seminar, a higher ranking would come in, give a lesson, and then afterwards, black belts would be standing around talking about, whatever was covered, and you'd see everybody watched the same thing. They were all there at the same time, but then you get a whole bunch of different opinions on what they just saw. And it's kind of amazing how everybody filters stuff a little bit differently.
Well, if there's a story about a news story about a dog and a cat robbing a bank, people that are dog apologists are going to go, oh, some cat made a dog rob a bank. That's how they're going to hear it. And then the other way around, some people are going to go, oh, that dog made those cats rob the bank. 'Cause that's the way they're hearing it. And they might both repeat the story, but now they're going to say, cat forced some dog to rob a bank. The other ones are going to say a dog forced some cat to rob a bank. And now it's got two branches, right? I'm just trying to pick something silly. But, people
And
like
then
to say,
kids from the 90s hear that cat dog robbed the bank.
yeah, exactly. And, I wouldn't even know what you're talking about, except for I think you're talking about some cartoon or whatever. So, right? Like that's how, it seems facts, but everybody's got what they bring to those facts, right? What they take home from those facts.
Ozzy said he watches Fox and Friends in the morning. And with all of them, you have to read between the lines and take all of them with a grain of salt. Guns and Water. I get my news from Marfoogle and Prepper Now.
What is that?
I don't know.
No, I have no idea. Never heard of either one of them.
I was thinking probably other YouTube channels. But Mr. Knives is out there. Good evening. You're breaking up.
It's hard to do.
Yeah.
That's what I hear.
Yeah, Guns and Water said 2 YouTube channels. Mr. Bob Dabalina said perception is reality. That was the short while that I worked for Denny's. I was a dishwasher for Denny's. And I got hired shortly after the big controversy where they were accused of racism. So there's a training film I had to watch. And that the kind of the main point of the training thing is perception as reality. And the scenario they laid out was somebody got seated before somebody else. And there was a reason that happened. But for the person who was in line first, who didn't know what was going on, to them, there was a bias going on. So they kind of showed how perception, for him, perception was reality, Oh, Ozzy said he watches Fox and Friends because he's crushing on Ainsley.
Is that what F and F is? Who's Ainsley?
I don't know. I haven't watched Fox and Friends in a long time.
Oh, Ainsley Earnhardt.
M. Gabriel's out there. I don't know if it's a limited edition. We'll see.
Now, when I was growing up, there was somebody out there that that you could trust. Like we knew if Walter Cronkite if he told us something, then that was the truth, But he's been gone a while. So.
Well, the thing to remember, which I've said before, is the news is a commodity that's sold to people.
Yep.
Always has been, always will be. And I mean, it goes back to, and I can never remember the founding fathers who were running against each other for the presidency, and there were newspapers. One newspaper was for one candidate, one was for the other candidate, and they ran stories about the opposing candidates' mothers. Once hinted that the other's mother was a prostitute, and the other hinted that the other was hermaphrodite. So it's, there has been stuff like that going on forever. And it was, God, I always forget his name. But in the 20s, the phrase "if it bleeds, it leads." That's how old that phrase is. Comes from the 20s. It was
Is it Edward R. Murrow?
Hearst.
Oh.
No, Hearst.
William Randolph Hearst.
Yes, he's the one that coined the phrase "if it bleeds, it leads." M. Gabriel said HR training rubs me the wrong way. I prefer lengthwise.
The only
Yeah.
HR that's mildly entertaining is HR Puffin stuff, and that was a long time ago.
He's your friend when things are rough.
That's right.
But for those who may have missed the very beginning, there's pinned at the top of the chat is a link for this week's poll. If you haven't voted in the poll, go vote in the poll. And there's also a contest over there. The link is for the community tab, so you can find both of them over there. But so I watched the Apocalypse Z, the zombie movie you were talking about, G-Webs.
You like it?
It was okay. Wasn't great. There's definitely some. Wasn't the best, but it wasn't the worst. And that kind of, after watching it, kind of got me, when I was thinking about the movie afterwards, that's kind of got me thinking that would be our topic for this week: zombies and fighting zombies. And a quick synopsis of the movie: the main character is a lawyer, and there's a virus outbreak, and they're rage zombies. So they're the fast zombies, not the slow brains kind of zombie. And he's I don't know, how would you describe the movie?
I'm trying to even remember it anymore. It was just a different take on a zombie movie a little bit. Was it a zombie movie? It was, trying to remember now the deal.
I would put it in the zombie, but like I said, kind of the rage zombies, not the slow
Yeah, they're just mad,
rotting
right?
corpse zombie.
And they happen fairly quick sometimes, which
Yeah.
so anyway, I just think of it as I thought of it as a just a different take on a zombie movie with a lot of action. Just it's a fast action movie. And oh yeah, so it's essentially the guy, without spoiling it too hard, the breakout happens. It's always a zombie breakout, right? Like the breakout happens and he gets a little insight from his sister or something, like hey, don't do this, and everybody else does that, and then he kind of finds himself not alone, but one of the few people that don't do the main thing. And then it's the story of how he tries to reunite with his sister or something after majority of people listen to what they're supposed to do and get in trouble. So I think that's the way to describe it, right? It's a zombie movie, but it's about his point of view, or his story of how he dealt with the rise of the disaster or whatever. And he's not like a hero or nothing. He's just a guy who happens to kind of get through. I don't think it's like the safety of the world depends on him or anything.
Yeah, the number one thing, and he's supposed to be, it's an ordinary guy. So, he's not Chuck Norris in a zombie movie. He takes his cat. That was the first thing that, it's a beloved pet, but the cat can survive on its own, and taking the cat it turns out not to be a huge problem in the movie, but it's a potential problem
because they fake it. They have the cat living in his backpack, which wouldn't have gone down real well. Maybe
That
after
was
years of just craziness, a cat might get to where he's going to do outrageous things to be with a human. But yeah, that cat would have booked it out of there, like, just running down this. Imagine putting a cat into a backpack and running down the stairs. First time you open that backpack, that cat's out of there. That cat's not going to stick around and go, oh, I understand why you threw me in a backpack and we ran downstairs, or why you threw me in a backpack and we're running around, having all these adventures, and every once in a while I stick my head out. That is kind of fake.
Well, even if it was a calm enough cat to put up with all that, you have to feed the cat.
Yeah.
But the cat can survive on its own, probably as well as if he was with you. And because it does come up later in the movie where the cat is meowing and he's trying to tell the cat be quiet, because when the zombies hear a noise, they all run towards it. And
the cat's never going to be like, oh, I need to be quiet right now. Like a cat.
And you can't tell a cat to be quiet.
I've tried.
Like a dog, you can go, "Shh," and the dog will shut up, right? Like the dog will quit barking. Like you can get a dog to figure it out. But cats, especially just a house cat, it isn't. But that was part of the movie, right? Like that he's, I don't know, bringing his pet with him.
And then he ends up finding a motorcycle, and so he's riding to a destination on the motorcycle, but he's got the motorcycle pegged. Fuel is a commodity, is a limited commodity, and the faster you go, the faster you're going to use. It becomes less fuel efficient. There does come a point where he needs to go fast, but you don't have to go as fast as you can all the time, because you have to conserve the fuel, because it's in limited quantity. And again, this, we're looking at a movie and it's a character who's just an average guy, so they're not thinking about these things. But it's just something I thought about as he's racing down the highway, the empty highway. It's like, well, you're burning up all your gas, buddy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, part of it was that he wasn't a superhero and he wasn't like some trained guy saving the world, and the fate of the world didn't rest on his actions or anything. He's just trying to get to his family. But they kind of moved the plot things out of the way so that whatever plot they wanted, there wasn't a lot of reality in there.
Carolina ADC Reviews is out there. He said that's why you buy a Cybertruck, to save the environment. Yeah, Guns and Water said poor George.
Barbecue stopped jumping back in, I guess.
He probably got frustrated with his internet. Said he didn't know what's going on.
Usually internets get better in the middle of the night. That's lame.
I don't know. I had a problem with that for a while too, where at a certain time my internet would start
like
going
they shut it
wonky
down at night, maybe, or something.
I don't know. It.
Well, it's Saturday night. I guess it's possible a bunch of kids in this area are playing the video games, taking up all the bandwidth in the area.
Then the other thing is he was really trusting of every stranger he met.
Yeah. I think that's why it was a little different, though, is because he wasn't like a superstar, tactical guy who knew all the right moves. He just kind of happened to, get, like I said, they moved the plot around so that he would get through all the adventures.
Then they had Uzis and AKs. And they weren't unlimited magazines, but they seemed kind of.
Yeah, they didn't keep that boundary hard.
Yeah,
Every once in a while,
but
they just
he
ammo and
did.
they need to-
He did run out. Which,
But
you
as a
know,
plot point, not as like a reality of guns.
yeah.
But I don't think it
So
was distracting. It wasn't like you say, like the 100-round endless mag that they never have to change, or the bullets that always do exactly what they need to do, or never do what they need to do.
and that's one thing I was going to ask the panel. A lot of times when there's zombie discussions and people are trying to figure out what caliber, a lot of people will pick 22. And to me, 22 has always seemed really underpowered to me, even for the rotting corpse kind of zombies. But the rage zombies,
It's ridiculous.
I think you're going to be in trouble. What caliber? What would be your smallest caliber you would go with?
Well, then why was all that zombie max ammunition made in 22? Somebody knew something.
They made 22 caliber zombie mags. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Well, how rigorous was their zombie testing?
Well, they're not going to tell you everything.
What if it's just a scam? What if they are zombies? So they're selling you underpowered ammunition.
Mm-hmm.
So you're saying there's a zombie marketplace? And that they're
there-
fighting an economic war?
There's a dark web. There's lots of weird things that happen there. So what would be your minimum caliber? What would you take?
5.56.
5.56.
For all the same reasons as anything else. It's just, you got reach. You can put it in a small firearm, and it's got enough stopping power or whatever you want to call it for whatever, real and zombie you have to deal with.
Yeah, but if there's 1,000 zombies out there, I don't have that many rounds of 223 5.56, but I could pick off a whole bunch of them with 22.
Well, that's the
Not going to kill
that's the
them.
problem. Are you going to be able to pick off a zombie with a 22?
Well, none of us
Hit 'em
have
all.
ever actually hunted a zombie, so you don't know.
I do not believe a 22 would be sufficient to stop a zombie.
If I think there's zombies coming up these stairs, I'm probably getting the 12 gauge.
The 12 gauge has a lot of power, but has a very limited capacity.
Makes a great big hole, though.
Yes, in the first few, but what about the rest?
That's then.
Your best bet in that place would be to block the door down there so that they don't even come up the stairs, right?
Well, that's just it. You got to funnel the enemy down to a central entry point. So you're not having to shoot in all directions. You're basically just catching them as they filter in.
Well, have you seen the meme where it's like a cabin and they put treadmills in front of the windows and the doors to stop the zombies?
On the outside so that they get to the window and they're just running.
Yeah. Goddamn Bacon said everybody's gangsta hating on 22 until the 22 Gatling comes out.
I think they already exist. I think there's already one 22 Gatling gun.
There is.
Well, I mean,
There's,
still it's unveiled, until it makes its way.
I would say that would be a little different because
Yeah.
you're putting a lot of rounds. It's impractical, but that would be more for a fortification.
Now, what if it takes fire to actually kill them? The bullets won't do it at all. Then you're going to have a flame gun.
Ah,
Yeah. That's never been a thing, though. Or at least I can't think of one. Maybe in the Dracula, or what I'm saying, the vampire ones, maybe.
I don't know. That's an interesting question, Gary.
Or radioactivity. And I know all about radio. I'm your guy when it comes to radioactivity.
Well, Gary is radioactive. Yeah, I think 556 is a really good choice. That when they did the video challenge, went around, your one gun. That's what I picked. Was a 556 because of its versatility. I would say for handgun, probably 9mm, which I hate to say, but there's enough power and more capacity than a larger caliber.
Didn't somebody do a bracket one time on gun channels? Which one would survive a zombie apocalypse? Was it Ghost or? Seems like way back years ago. Because for some reason I won this silly bracket, and I'm still not sure to this day why. But not sure I want to survive a zombie apocalypse. But
Well, as I always say, in any apocalypse scenario, the easiest way to survive is to join the mob. Be a part of the horde rather than being on your own.
I like the ones that have some kind of a zombie universe where the outbreak happens. Then, they're zombies. They're not survival experts. So once they become zombies, they're just walking around, they freeze to death, or they decompose, or they fall into a lake, or they fall off a cliff, or whatever. And, there's an outbreak of them. The population of the planet drops, but then they all kind of fade off. And now there's the people that were either immune or never affected. And then they get to repopulate the planet. And that would be an interesting, scenario for a story. You know what I mean? Like, you'd still have a zombie or two probably to deal with, but very few. And then you'd have, this world to rebuild with all this stuff. Like, no nuclear bomb went off, just a bunch of fighting. But, essentially you could clean everything up and start over and turn lights back on and, figure out how to get things going again.
That's something that Yankee has talked about in the past, where if the zombies are rotting, they're going to rot away eventually.
Unless they've got something in them where, like, a crow bites them and then they become a crow zombie, and then that crow gets eaten by a fox and it becomes, it's like if it travels on like that, then it'll probably stick around for a while. But if you figure it's just a human thing, and they all turn into zombies, and the people that survive hide in a hole for a month or two, and then all the zombies, can't exist after a while. There's not enough brains to eat. And now, I think it's either everybody dies or the people that were in hiding come out and go, oh, I guess it's over now.
Yeah. So, I watched another movie. Well, I watched some of another movie. Crazy Samurai 400 versus 1. And it's a very different idea, which I thought was novel. It just wasn't a very good movie. But there's the leader of a clan is killed. So the son takes over, but he's like 8. And you get like 10 minutes of exposition at the beginning of the movie that sets up what's going on. And they set up a duel with the samurai that killed his father. And it's a trap. So there's basically there's 100 samurai and they hired 300 mercenaries, and they're all hiding in the woods around where the kid is sitting, who's waiting for the duel, and they're waiting. But the samurai that they're trying to lure in is Musashi, Miyamoto Musashi, and the little spoiler alert, the little kid looks up. He's sitting kind of by himself. All the other samurais kind of move around away from him. Little kid looks up, and Musashi jumps out of the tree and kills him at the beginning of the movie. The rest of the movie is the fight between Musashi and the 400. I don't know if the kid counts, so I don't know if it's 399 now. But it's one fight scene. The rest of the movie, so you got about 10 minutes of talking, and then an hour and 20 minutes of one fight scene. That, they do kind of move around as they fight, but that's it. That's the movie. I thought it was novel, but it was not very good movie. I cannot recommend it, other than out of curiosity.
I just watched the trailer. It looked all right. Looks like it was well made.
For the most part, there's scenes where it goes into like first person view, and that's kind of looks like GoPro footage. He's wearing the GoPro. But it's just, I had never seen a movie done that way before, so thought it was interesting in that aspect.
When I was younger, we would fight 200 samurai because we couldn't afford 400. It wouldn't take that long. It would only take about half an hour.
The goddamn bacon said, what's worse than dealing with zombies that are actively after you? Dealing with zombies that are actively after you while on fire. Oh, so let's take a look at the poll, this week's poll. If you haven't voted in the poll, there's a link pinned at the top of the chat. All right, get the right one. And then let me refresh. Make sure I've got all the comments here. And let me switch to sort by newest. All right, so it was, do you feel any different about life after the election? This was not a very well worded sentence. I know that. Do you feel any different about life after the election than you did before the election? Yes, no, or what election? So 65% said yes, 29% said no, and 6% said what election? G-Webs had said, I feel like Wednesday evenings will never be the same now that the election's happened. FUKUYT Mark 6. I want to thank everyone for making me ruler of the universe. Now I'll take care of those pesky Klingons. 2A Chef and Barbecue. I'm looking forward to things coming back to some normalcy, seeing friends suffering less and being a little more secure as time progresses. We've been beaten pretty badly for the past 4 years. People aren't well off and struggling may have a chance to get back above water. Something most won't even consider, but I know that we've been through, and I have some friends that have had to use food banks just to feed their kids that they never had to before.
I think when you've got somebody in charge that isn't obsessed with sending billions to wars, like that's one of the things he ran on, is stopping that support for wars at the billions of dollars. That's got to affect. I know a lot of that was loans, like spending money we don't have. or printing money, but there's whatever you want to call trickle down, or like the effect of that is that other things get stepped on. So I think that's got to be going to end up being a big change.
Yeah, for that, I'm not sure how much was cash, how much was material.
Well, it don't matter if we're moving value over there. We're also propagating, or whatever the word is, like continuing a freaking, fighting, which is bad for perception of our, what do you call it? Like, what we're trying to spread democracy, or we're trying to spread nation building. You know what I mean? Like I don't know what they think that it, only has positive effect. That's not the case. Like, anytime you spend money, the people you're spending money against hate you even more. So, you know what I mean? For every good it does, at the same time, it's also doing some bad.
That was one of the things for Trump's first go round, which I really liked, was he didn't get us into any new wars. He's like, nah, we'll deal with our own stuff right now.
He doesn't get a cut of them. And I was listening to some what do they call it? Like perspective that somebody was saying, why do the Democrats like to start wars? Because, well, one reason might be because wars tend to, like stimulate the economy. And, you screw up the economy. So start a war, and now you get some of that back through whatever that is,
That helped us get us out of the Great Depression, was the war.
Well, yeah, but it wasn't like anybody started World War II to make some money.
No.
People will say that, but you know what I mean? People made money in World War II for sure. But that was a consequence. That was a pretty big thing. It wasn't, but some of the stuff that we're talking about is scale that, there's lots of ways to interpret it for sure. But I guess if we're just talking about our situation, I'm just saying without that spending, and even if we are sending resources, if that just represents resources, that's just a lot of work for this country to do, taking resources out of the ground and turning them into munitions and then shipping them so that somebody else can fight about some property that is way far away that, we may or may not have strategic need to be around or whatever.
Vian Noel said, I love liberals crying. The Dude said, ask again January 20th. Guns and Barbecue, I'm now self-identifying as a squirrel. Come and get me, big government. G Top Notch, just going back to usual. And Abigail Sorsha Finnegan, my hatred of the government remains the same regardless of the puppet in the White House. So
the question you have to ask yourself, it's too bad Rich isn't here because he could help with this, is did it just happen to be a circumstance that most of the entire U.S. naval fleet was assembled at Pearl Harbor and we were a sitting duck for the Japanese? Or did we know the Japanese were coming and intentionally didn't do anything about it because we wanted them to lure us into World War II?
That's been a conspiracy theory for a long time.
Because that was the only way the American people would allow us to enter, is if we were under attack.
I don't believe so, but that's more of a choice than knowledge of the subject.
We'll never know.
Well,
No. That's from people that only come at history with zero knowledge and then look at selected facts and go, oh, if you select these facts, it all lines up. But there's way too much prehistory to that. I don't see that being a thing. It's possible that one little action or two may have, created the, what do you call it, the series of events that resulted in it. But there's no way I believe that some department sat around and said, oh, let's sacrifice our entire Pacific fleet, essentially, right? Minus a couple of boats. That's not a, You know what I mean? Like if you're trying to bait a country, you go sacrifice a boat or something, like some planes. That's all you need when times are that hot. I think it was more of there was a massive thing happening in all of Europe. No one expected the entire Pacific Ocean to turn into a war also. I mean, there was that tension, but I don't know. You'd have to talk to a bunch of old people and find out what the reality was, but so I was going to say with this poll, though, if you would have asked it the day after the election, that's one thing. But at least, I was sick for a day there, and I came back out of that, and I started looking around, and I seen a couple of posts where it's like, dude's been elected, but he hasn't even been, whatever they call it, he doesn't actually have his job yet. But essentially, every leader out there was like, we're going to stop having wars now, and we look forward to working with the United States. Have you seen that? There's like about 3 posts I've seen like that. So some news article must have hit it and then people grabbed on it. But, like the Chinese guy was like, I hope that we can have a long-lasting relationship. And then Russia guy was like, I think it's a good idea to stop tension, to stop the aggressions or whatever he said. And then the Ukraine guy is like, I'm glad you're here because we can stop this shit now. And Africa is saying we're going to stop this shit. Like all kinds of people are saying, hey, I'm looking forward to working with the United States again. Like 4 years of bullshit. Now we're going to be working with him again. Looks good.
I've heard he's talked to other countries already. I don't know who or what capacity. Well,
I don't think he needed to talk to anybody is what I'm saying. I get the impression that these are all like congratulatory texts or tweets that were sent out by these nations, but essentially they're all saying we're going to simmer down now because now we got a guy who isn't, just out there to make a couple of bucks for himself.
Well, I had heard a story that when he met with Kim Jong Il, which one is now Un?
Yeah.
When he met with Un, and they were talking, and Trump basically told Trump told him, "I will kill you," and Un took it as being us attacking the country, and Trump said no, we will kill you, and that seemed to calm Un down a little bit with
the North Korea guy.
Yeah.
I never heard of that. I mean, I heard him say that pretty tough to Taliban or whoever, but not. And even the Taliban was like, hey, let's be friends. But I never heard that one yet.
So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I think there will be some change. I don't think there'll be a lot of change because there tends not to be a lot of change.
What do you mean? Internationally?
In general, when this president, that president, this party, that party.
Well, we had change from Trump to Biden. So, we just experienced massive change, like literally the door swinging so far the other way. It's going to be changed just to go, if the door was open one way and then it was open the other way, it's going to be changed just to get the door to close. And I don't think Trump's goal is to make the door close. He wants to swing it back the other way. So I think change is, I don't know if you want to call it positive or negative, but there's going to be a lot of change, I think. Think about didn't he say Elon is going to be the Department of Slimming Down the Government or whatever? And I heard something, where did I see something where they were, I think I seen something recently, but it was recorded prior to the election, so he didn't already know. But maybe it was after he already knew he was president, but essentially saying how he's gonna, go through and remove, 9 out of 10 jobs or something like that. What's that called? Like weeding out all the bureaucracy would be a big change, like a giant change.
Yeah. Hopefully.
Like talking about, I heard some people talking that their income tax is like 14% of the budget at this point, of the national budget. So why do they even need to do income tax? And so that's, I don't know. That wasn't Trump or nothing. That was just people talking. But if that's where the conversation's going to get to after 4 years, I mean, think of the change there. After 4 years, if Trump is able to do it with tariffs and taxes on other things, get rid of the 14% that comes from property, from individual income taxes. I mean, that gets rid of the what do they call them? The IRS and everything. That was also in that same conversation. The guys were saying, like, since we aren't even that big of an issue for income for the country with income tax, take the IRS and tell them to leave us alone and start scrutinizing politicians and the businesses that back the politicians, and go scrutinize that. And the money you save there would be, one, you get rid of the people that are just hemorrhaging money, and two, the money you save would pay for everything, way more than cover what you lose in income taxes. And then you'd have a country of people that actually can do some stuff with their full income, instead of, some people are paying 40% or more of their income, and it's easy to go, well, I don't care because that's a rich person. But that rich person, I still say that rich person usually doesn't just sit on money. They go buy something with it, if it's a house or a boat or a car or something. And that's jobs, that's people, that's what keeps the economy going, is people buying stuff. So it's not people buying cheap stuff, it's people buying all stuff. So anyway, I see income tax savings as a massive boost for the economy.
Yeah, and I would, I am a proponent of flat tax, where everybody, I don't like the graduated tax system that we have. Even though somebody, a billionaire makes $1 billion, so they can afford to pay more. Well, yes, they can, but they shouldn't have to. If we're treating everybody equal, if I get charged 15% income tax, he gets charged 15% income tax. He won't notice the difference, but he's still paying as much as, his percentage is the same as mine, as it should be for everybody. He will be paying more because he's makes more, and aside from the taxes theft that a lot of people believe. But I don't like the idea of charging this person more than that person, percentage wise. I don't care if they make more money than me.
Justin brought up that first speech that Trump did, and where he's talking about censorship and the First Amendment and stuff. Did you see that? It's like 8 minutes.
I've heard about it, but I didn't watch it.
Oh man, it's good. I mean, it is good. I guess if you hate him, you're going to look at it through, the filter of, I hate this guy. Anything he says is a lie. But I don't care one way or the other. I would have just been as fine with anybody else, but I don't have a problem with him either. But and I don't know what he did last time, but I don't see him as being a one-trick pony. Like, it's pretty obvious, pretty evident that he hated a lot of the people that he picked as, what do you call them? Like, for the roles last time around.
Yeah.
And he suffered from it. So he's made it clear that he's not going to do the same thing this time. And it looks like he's picking more competent, people. But anyhow, this speech, man, it's worth listening to, just so that you can see his level of competence in what he's saying. And you can tell somebody wrote the speech or whatever, he's reading it, which is fine because it covers a lot of stuff. But essentially it's saying, there's an issue with messaging and people having a stranglehold on the ability to message. So we're going to do things that, whatever, to try to fight that, I guess. But anyway, the stuff that he's talking about and the way that he says it, I think is worth listening to, just for, I don't know, I guess a lot of people hate him, which I can guess I understand. I mean, I understand that people hate him. I don't necessarily know why all the time, but if you hate him, you're not going to listen to this.
I've never understood. Everybody loved, well, a lot of people loved him. A lot of the people that hate him now, the famous people that hate him now, loved him up until he declared he's running for president. I don't know why. All of a sudden, everybody started hating.
He isn't a normal politician, and all the regular normal politicians are getting fucking loaded and they do not like the idea of him coming in there. And there's just a bunch of people that make their money because of some loaded politician pays the bills, and they all have to hate this guy because he's trying to screw that up. Maybe
Well,
that's
there's
too
that,
simple.
but there is also a contingency of the left where if you disagree with them, you're not just like, oh, okay, you have a difference of opinion. Like, you are their enemy. And I realize like there's some people on the right like that as well, but I have found that to be far more true with people on the left. That for a party that preaches tolerance, they are very intolerant when you disagree with them.
And they're in like lockstep. Like on the right,
Yeah.
it seems like maybe we're just more comfortable with the right, but you can tell when people on the right, like, oh, I don't like you. They walk away from each other. On the left, is like, I don't like you, and I'm going to keep a grudge.
And it's not just a grudge. Like, they want to destroy your entire life.
Yeah, good point. Like they don't hold back. They don't understand the consequences of like, let's just take everybody out with like a knife instead of taking them out with,
It's
an
either
unkind word or
you
whatever.
think like we do, or it's I don't get it. So like I said, there are persons on the right like that, but as a whole, I find the left to be like that, and that's not fair to lump everybody that identifies as Democrat
Yeah, you have to, though,
to be
if
like
you're just
that.
making
But
generalizations.
like I said, as a whole, yeah. So,
well, and I
like
think
I said,
that
I
if
think
it's
that's the
like
big
the
Trump
left,
hate is for the longest time. He was viewed as a Democrat. He was a friend of the left and all that. And then when he jumped on the Republican ticket, that immediately made him public enemy number one.
Yeah.
Because imagine if he would have ran as a Democrat. I don't think he would have the hate.
Well, from the right, he would, but it wouldn't have been so.
Oh yeah. Let's say
I don't know. It
would
wouldn't have
not
been
have the
so
vitriol
bad.
that it does.
Yeah, that's the word. I would say that the left tends to approach younger people, maybe people that don't pay attention, so they never like keep reading. But when you're young and you figure stuff out and you start to know that you can make decisions and you're going to be playing a part in the world and all that, and whatever you were been told in school is fresh in your head, then this one one party comes along and has all the Hollywood and all the music, or a lot of Hollywood, a lot of the music and all that. I think and they've got like these, like, let's save the world. We're going to tell you our way to save the world and not acknowledge any other ways to save the world, but we're going to save the world. And then the other messaging is like, leave our country alone and let us keep our money, which when you're a kid, you don't care about money because you've never made any money, right? Money is just a thing. It's a theoretical thing when you're a kid. So I think the left tends to go after the young, the youth, and then the people that are essentially youth because they don't pay attention. They never kept learning. And okay, so we're here, we're trying to save the world, and we've already figured it out. It's climate change, right? It's like all these issues that we've come up with. These are the ways to save the world. So start choking on them or get on board. And the other side is different, right? I'm not going to get into what the right is, but the right is essentially leave us alone and then we all go away. And that's, the other side. And I think that's why you get you said vitriol. I think it's a good way of saying it. Like they freaking hate, because they're so young and they don't care yet. They don't know. They haven't had experience. They don't understand consequences yet. And of course, the evil ones are the ones that are old and fat and wealthy that prey on those youngins. But I think a lot of the youngins, they just want to save the world. They just want to do something that's going to be different, with their actions that don't create what they've been told the other generations before them have done, without paying attention, like recklessly just destroyed the world. Because that's the messaging. The world is over. this little planet is destroyed because previous generations didn't give a shit about you or the earth, and we do, and we're going to do things that save the earth, and all these other people could care less. They only care about themselves. So do you care about everybody and love in the future and caring, or do you care about greed and wealth and yourself? And that's the messaging they're given. And until you can, like I say, get experience and get past that, it's enticing, right? It's like, hey, this side is legit. This side's on the side of right, and the other side is working against them. And then, of course, all those old people that just know they can make money and know they can preach to these young kids, and they stay on board. But isn't that what they say? Like, you're liberal when you're young and you're conservative when you're old.
Something like that.
So once you start paying some taxes and paying for a kid and watching other people deal with their lives and healthcare and all the things in the world, it's really hard to be, hey, let's save the entire planet with throwing away resources, like, yeah, we kind of need resources to even keep going. You know what I mean? I'll get into it.
My 18-year-old sister, for the last couple of years, I mean, she just got to vote this year, but for the last couple of years, she's like any other young dumb kid, and she hears all the talking points, about save the planet, all that stuff, and just I'm like, it all sounds great. I was like, you got to put some thought and rationale to it. Where's this stuff gonna get paid for? This, that, one of the things, she's like, oh, the student debt forgiveness or all that, and she's like, I'm gonna be going to college. Like, okay, I was like, I'm gonna get paid for, and abortion and blah blah blah. I was like, plan on having one? Well, no. I was like, all right, so why are you worried about it? But I went. Shortly after she turned 16, she got a job because she wanted to get a car, and she wanted a charger, and she got, into having that job and everything, her views started to change, and by the time it rolled around, after having to pay for gas and just
Insurance.
being more independent and buying her own groceries, because she would go to her boyfriend's house, and they would go get food to make dinner or something, and she's like, this shit.
Oh,
As soon as he comes in clear again, he drops them.
I have a younger sister that was a somewhat similar experience.
I was
You
having
got-
such a good run.
Yeah,
Such a good
you
run.
got you got mumble, whatever. It was breaking up,
Garbled.
and then you got garbled, and then you came back, and it was clear again.
Oh, really?
And then it killed you. Then it dropped you.
Dang it. But
But we heard most of what you're saying. That but once
Yeah,
she had her
and
car and she had to start paying
she's-
bills.
yeah, and she's like, man, this stuff kind of sucks, and reality started to set in, and she's like, maybe this whole whatever the heck you want to call it, social justice, all that good stuff, isn't all it's cracked up to be.
one of my younger sisters, she's always been, kind of conservative, and she did a poll. She had told me about doing a poll, and the poll would tell you what candidate you would most likely, would be aligned with what you think.
Like a test.
And yeah, she said it came up with Dennis Kucinich for her. I don't know if anybody remembers Dennis Kucinich.
Oh, you mean like you answer a bunch of questions and then it picks the candidate or the politician that would most align with your views on the world?
Yeah, and she was young. She's probably around 18, and what I don't remember exactly what Kucinich all was
Wasn't he like
about,
the
but he's
governor of some state
left.
back east or something?
Yeah, he was kind of far left. And but when she's answering the questions, basically it's all these questions about helping people and stuff like that. Well, yeah, she wants to help people, but she didn't understand the ramifications of how you get there through what, the policies that he wanted. And I think if she looked back now, she would, now that she's a little older with kids and, been married for a while, she would kind of understand that she liked the idea of helping people, but that's not the way she would think it should be done.
Yes.
And with the back up, so talking about the First Amendment speech stuff, when Trump was talking about, and the stop the shadow banning, I would just like them to be forced to choose: are they a platform or a provider?
Oh, I'm
Yes.
pretty sure that's going to come to a head because that's sort of adjacent or whatever to what his speech was about.
Because if they're on one side where I can't remember the two terms, but one way allows them to not get in trouble for what people say on their platform. The other one is they can moderate their content.
Platform or publisher, by the way.
Thank you, publisher. So
Well,
if they make a solid determination, which are they, a platform or a publisher? If they're a publisher, then they have every right to control what's on their site. If they're a platform, then they lose that objectivity, that subjectivity. Rather than, because they're both right now, they're, like the social media platforms, they're both. And it's been allowed to go on as them being both. Because if
they're not supposed to be both, though.
Yeah,
They're supposed to be one or the other. But for some reason, it's been allowed for them to go on as both, and it's not right because they're having their cake and they're eating it too, and well, we can't have that, because then they're getting to censor whatever it is that they want to censor. Meanwhile, they're protected from anything as well.
And all the congressional hearings on it they're all kind of a joke where,
Well, they are, but there was something very damning that came out, and that was when Zuckerberg said that he really wishes he wouldn't have. And I'm sorry, but that itself is a mission that he colluded with the government to do the censorship that they were doing.
that's one where I dislike the idea of what they were doing, but if the government says, hey, we would like you to do this, but they don't force them to do it, then it's not really breaking any laws.
But at what point does it become unconstitutional? So if the government came and said to all the gun manufacturers, hey, we would like for you to give us all the information on guns sold so we can just make this database.
that if they just ask what the part of the problem is they're not allowed to keep a database. But aside from that,
But
on any issue, no matter what the issue is, if they just ask, they can ask. It's like a cop can walk up to you, of course, depending on your state laws, blah, 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 blah. They can ask. But at the point where they force it, they say, we would like this information. If you don't give it to us, then you'll be penalized in some way. That's when it definitely crosses the line. The asking is really close to that line, and I'm not sure. Like I said, I don't like the idea of it, but to me, it doesn't really cross the line constitutionally.
For me, I guess anything that messes with the First Amendment really, really bothers me. We hear people say, "Are you a single issue voter or anything like that?" I tell people I'm a primary issue voter. Primary issue being Second Amendment first, and then after I determine how one candidate stacks up against the other candidate on that, I go on to my secondary issue and so on and so forth. And that's how I will make my determining factors on who I vote for. But more important to me than the Second Amendment is the First Amendment. I tell people all the time, if I'm having some in-depth conversation, that I believe the First Amendment is the First Amendment for a reason, and the Second Amendment is the Second Amendment for a reason. And if, as long as we have the ability to petition our government, then the idea of there's going to be a civil war or anything like that, no, because we always have the ability to petition our government and address our grievances, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But like this past election, especially, Democrats really came out hard saying about how they really need to moderate what's going on social media and blah, blah, blah. I mean, like, it's really gross. And then, even if we're going to split hairs, say, oh, they just asked, like, and that might, I'm not saying you're wrong, Fuss. Like, technically, yes, it's just asking. But man, that's
no, I agree with you on that. Though I do not like them asking, but
my big thing, like, if the First Amendment's gone, I feel like at that point we have no choice but to use the Second. And I'm not saying like, oh, it would just be gone overnight or anything like that, but like I said, I believe that there is a reason the first is the first and the second is the second. Does the second give the first teeth? Yes, but I think as long as there's the first, we don't have to use the second. And all this talk of eroding the first recently, that one really scares the shit out of me.
Well, it is more of erosion because it's not like they're saying, let's remove the first. They're just saying, let's get rid of chunks of the first, which is, the same as erosion, right? Like nibbling. I was going to add that it seems like the left, it's always, and I think for everything I just said before, because it's easier to tell the kids, like, you know, the adults don't care about this, but that, everything that's happening now is dire. So when you talked about them asking, I'm talking about specifically the social media to essentially censor or narc or whatever they were asking the socials to do. And they're on all these, like you're saying, all these like calls for some kind of governance or some kind of regulation of the social medias, which is really saying let's create censorship in the First Amendment. They're not going to say like, for now, or like, because it's a good idea, but they're going to be like, because it's necessary for the virtue of the world. Like the world won't keep going if we don't do exactly what we say immediately. So they're not gonna, they never have been able to, at least not in a long time. They haven't been able to go, we have this idea, you have that idea. We prefer ours. Like it's either their way or the world's going to end. At least that's their messaging. So their messaging is going to be more, if we allow Elon to say whatever he wants, there's no more democracy. I mean, they're very, what's the word for that? Like drastic in their evaluations of everything. Is that the way to say it?
Hyperbolic.
Yeah, a better way to say it probably, but you know what I'm saying? Like they get really concerned that everything's or all their positions are gonna, and I think that I'm just wandering here, but isn't that like narcissist or like all these different things tactics that people use? Like that's a tactic probably to make your position ultimately important, so that everyone has to stop everything and listen to your situation that you're bringing to the table. When I wonder how many times these are distractions, or they're just that warped that they think. And I'm going off in a tangent again, but there's issues that they come up with as being the important issues. I'm just use global warming, but there's a pile of them, are not things like the economy or the infiltration of the border of criminals. They constantly, I mean, I listen to NPR so much, it drives me nuts. They constantly say migrants or immigrants when they know good and well that the other side, the conservative side, is almost always just talking about the criminals element that's involved in that, letting people in. Nobody gives a shit about the people coming in usually, because everyone understands that the country is a bunch of people from other places, but it's the idea of people jumping the line, or just they destroyed the line essentially, or the criminals that are getting in with
there's a
mix.
lot of people who have gone through the immigration process legally, done it the right way, that get upset when people jump the line.
Sure. I went on a lot of tangents there, but I'm just saying that the Democrats will say everything is, crucial to the to continuing of the whole planet. And the Republicans, it seems like, tend to have their issues, but it seems to me like at least their goal is to have the discussion and then walk away and go live their lives. Like their goal isn't to just sit there and create a new thing that we all have to worry about as a group. Like the Democrats are looking to load more and more stuff on the table that we have to worry about all the time. We find this important, so you have to worry about it too.
And kind of going back up, Ozzy said doing away with tax breaks that the rich get would make a huge difference.
I don't know.
And the goddamn Bacon said, I made the case back in 2018, remove the gun room that the agency is making payments for a public service is voluntary. Didn't expect anyone to listen, let alone agree. They didn't. Gizzard said he heard.
He's talking about IRS there, right?
I believe so. Gizzard said there's a push for Brandon Herrera to be the new director of the ATF.
Yeah, I saw that on X this evening.
That guy's such weak sauce. He's like watered down ketchup. He didn't even win a race in Texas. So I think there's a million other people to be ATF, but they need to get rid of the ATF.
But if we put a pro 2A person in charge of the ATF, doesn't that essentially render it?
No, I don't know. He
know.
almost won that race in Texas.
He did.
Yeah, he almost did.
He went to a runoff against the incumbent, and even in the runoff, it was very, very close.
That's fine. But I'm just saying YouTube credentials don't give you squat in the real world. And there's people, I mean, I could sit here for like an hour and talk about people who are not just more qualified, but would be better to be in
Dick
that
Heller.
position.
I would rather have Dick Heller than Brandon Herrera.
But I know what you're
100%.
saying, yeah. But I'm just saying there should be no ATF. And I'd rather start that discussion as here's why we got rid of the ATF instead of let's transition into a milder ATF. Nah.
X Adam 1, I believe the media supports the left. Cops don't arrest them, but would arrest us for rioting. There's with the, I forget which bunch of rioting, but there was a lot of people upset that nobody was getting arrested. There were a lot of people that got arrested after the fact. They didn't arrest him right there, but then went after him afterwards, and you didn't hear about those arrests. So there were people that do get arrested, and I understand the sentiment. And the goddamn bacon said, disagree. Had a grasp of money since I was at least 8. Then again, maybe I'm a special case. A lot of kids don't, and it used to be a thing where parents didn't talk to their kids about money. It was not something you did. My kids, I don't know, probably don't really have that great a, because they haven't had to worry about it. And it's my son, we did a thing where he would, he had a couple different piggy banks. One was long-term saving, one was short-term saving. We'd give him an allowance, and he put some in the long-term. He doesn't touch that. Some in the short-term, and that's what he would get to spend. And so, he understands money and uses it. But my daughter doesn't have any concept of money or things costing things. But she's, 5. So.
I've been doing
Probably.
similar things for my kids. Like my daughter, for instance, when I went to Thunder on the Prairie, I was gone for a week, and I asked her, when I'm gone, can you come over to the house every day, let the dogs out, feed, water them, spend some time with them, all that good stuff. And she's like, yeah, sure. And she did every day, and she took care of them, all that good stuff. I came home and told her, since you did that for the week for me, $50. And she went and she picked some stuff out and whatnot, and she had like $20 left over. And I told her, well, you could spend that now. As like, but you don't really know what you want, and you could just blow it. I was like, or save it. I was like, if you save it, this long, I'll give you 50% interest on it. She's like, what? I was like, and I think if I remember correctly, it was 6
Can I
months.
give
She
you
had to
some
wait.
of my money? Will you give me 50% interest on it?
If it's $1.
Dang it.
Let's say, but she had to wait like 6 months, but just because I wanted to see what she'd do. And she's like, 50% interest. I was like, that means you get $10 in 6 months. I was like, but you can't spend that $20 for 6 months, but in 6 months you'd have $30 total then. And she tried really hard. She went like 4 months, and then she wanted a sketchbook or something, or a couple sketchbooks. And I was like, are you sure? I was like, if you waited 2 more months, you could get a couple extra sketchbooks. And she's like, yeah. I was like, okay. So, but after that, she's like, I should have waited. I was like, you should have. And doing things like that, though, I've got her catching on to things, and she'll, once she's got some money, she'll ask to spend it, and I'll be like, okay, what do you want to get or something? And she'll be like this, and then we'll get to the store or something, and she'll get it, and she'll like, maybe not right now. And she's making some smarter decisions with her money, so it's good to see.
Yeah. Ozzy said, uh-oh. Gary didn't like it. He's left the chat.
Financial responsibility is not the chicken man's thing.
There he is. He came back.
Oh, okay.
Ozzy said socialism has never worked. I don't know if I wouldn't say socialism has never worked. I'm not a fan, but there are socialist countries that work with an underpinning of, capitalism. Communism, on the other hand, has never worked, will never work because of the failings of man. Maybe on the hippie communism, yeah, when you've got, a dozen people working together, but when you try and do it with a country, somebody's always going to want to be in charge just because the way people are. It will never change. And people that say, well, it's never been done correctly, or, it can't be done correctly.
If we just try it this way,
It's just communism harder. That was one thing that when around the last big push about building the wall here in the US, and they compared that to communism, and communism building the walls. Communism built the walls to keep people in because everybody wanted to leave. That's not why we were building a wall. There's a reason that communism only works if you have a captive audience. That's why they all build walls and shoot people that are trying to leave.
get down from there. Bang.
Yeah. Well,
I just looked it up because I don't even know the numbers and I want to be citing a bad number. So I asked the robots out there, and it says the United States federal income taxes have consistently been a significant source of government revenue. In 2022, individual income taxes accounted for 54% of the total federal revenues, equating to 10% of the gross domestic product, which I got to take that apart and figure what that means. But historically, federal tax receipts as a percentage of the gross domestic product, the GDP, have averaged around 17%. But since World War II, they've gone up to where they're now 54%. So for a long time, income tax was less than 20% of our government's budget. And now it's 54% of their budget. So if that's the case, then they're taking a lot of money from our paychecks to pay for shit like Ukraine and all that.
Yeah, and when people talk about the rich, it's, if you look at the percentages, the top 20% to reach that 20 percentile mark is only like 120,000 a year, 150,000 a year. That's not, to be in the top 20, you're not a millionaire. I mean, it is, you're making a good living, but you're not wealthy.
You're not ignoring money. Money still matters to you. You have to have budgets, and you're not just spending money.
And even like the top 10% isn't much more than that. And I don't think a lot of people understand. You've got a small number with a lot, and that skews that percentage.
Very much so. What is it? The top 1% controls 40%. Isn't it, Foss?
I don't know.
I think that's what it is, if I remember correctly.
But I don't care if somebody makes more money than me. If I can make what I need to make and I'm happy with what I'm making, I don't care if somebody makes more. I don't feel a need to punish somebody that makes more than me. Sergeant Joe Smith said the top 1%, 512,000.
Huh?
So I think that's the starting of the top 1%, starts at 512,000 and then goes, if you make 512, you're in the top 1%.
Gotcha.
I only make 511, so I'm not up there yet.
But I remember back in, I think it was 2016, or was it 2012? No, 2016, when Trump first ran and Rand Paul was running, and all those other people. Rand Paul, one of his things was a flat tax rate, and he's like, we got 70,000 pages of tax code. He's like, who has time to read all that? He's like, IRS agents don't even know all this. He's like, why do we have all this? He's like, do you know how much it costs just to print this out? He's like, it's insane. He's like, here's my tax code, 1 page, 14% for everybody. And the amount of people that were like, oh, that's going to cost me more taxes. Is it really? Is it going to cost you that much more? And like, I started looking through my pay stubs and stuff, and I was like, my federal taxes altogether, with everything they take out of me, it was like 13.5% or something like that. I was like, you'll pay 0.5% more. Like, but with that, it eliminated a bunch of BS that, because the thing is, there's a lot of crap in that 70,000 pages of tax code where rich people can get away with a lot of deductions and write-offs. And I'm sure, the everyday person could too, if they could afford a great CPA or something to actually go through their finances and be like, oh, yep, we're going to get rid of this and that and this. And, but the everyday person doesn't have access to a person like that to go through their taxes and find all those things that they can loophole. So, but yeah, when Rand Paul, held up that 1 page and was like 14%, I was like, yep, I am on board with that.
Woods brings up Steve Forbes ran on 10% for everyone. That's how I learned about flat tax was when Steve Forbes ran for the presidency.
Yeah, but then what do you consider taxable income? All income?
That's a good question, Gary.
Should I be taxed for my Social Security?
Well,
I already
technically,
paid tax on that once.
That's
they
No, they
tax you on it
pull
again
Social Security
before
taxes.
they tax you on it again before it hits your bank account.
What? They take Social Security before you get taxed. They don't. You don't get a bill for Social Security, do you? They take it out of your paychecks. I get a bill for Social Security because I don't get a paycheck, but y'all have a paycheck. You get a chunk of it taken out. That's pre-tax. So taxing you on your Social Security is a kick in the nuts. But if you just got to look at those tax codes because they probably don't tax. I don't know, like people who got veterans or something, like, what I mean? There's like probably all kinds of exceptions to it, but it's still within a page or whatever, like you're saying, right? Instead of being like subsections and, massive.
But no, there's a lot of crap that I don't think we should be taxed on, like inheritance tax. Like, so you're telling me that because a family member of mine dies and there is something that they left me that all of a sudden I've got to, pay because they left that to me? Like that's ridiculous. Yeah, I mean, you literally get taxed for dying at this point.
Well, it's amazing how many times, if you work a job and you get paid, from the time that money leaves your employer and it gets to you, everywhere that money touches, it gets taxed.
Yeah.
Sales tax?
Yeah. Well, income tax, sales tax,
excise tax.
Yeah. Yeah. Robert Moore said, how about 8%? And Wood said, you need way less IRS with a flat tax.
Oh, 100%.
They should need money from us with all this oil we supposedly have in Alaska. We should have plenty of money to run the government right there.
Honestly,
and one of the kind of, I won't say dirty secret, weird little things that people probably most people don't know is companies like H&R Block and the tax preparation companies. The reason that they have free software that you can use for federal is they lobby the government to keep the tax code confusing because that's their business is preparing
Oh,
taxes.
yeah.
And part of the compromise that they made with the government is to provide a free program to people. The government will keep things complex if those companies provide the free software. That's why there's free software.
And also, I would actually be on board with just the 10% flat rate tax. And there's one reason for it, and it's because it makes the math simple. Asking people to do math at 14% or 8% or anything else, people are they're gonna frig it up. 10% is a lot easier for people to not frig up.
One of the things ideas that I liked was, whatever percentage you choose, 10%, 15%, allowing people to do the straight flat tax. You just do your whatever percent, or if you want, you can go in and itemize, but you don't have to itemize if you don't want to. You can just do the straight tax. But if you want to spend the time to go in and then itemize your deductions, you can.
What about states? Do they still get their tax money?
I have not. That's not a thing for us in Washington. We don't have there's been a push for a while to get a state tax, but we don't have one. So it's not something that I've thought about a lot. So I don't have an opinion on it right now.
I got bent over every year by state taxes.
Ours is like 2.5% in Arizona.
I was happy to break even every year.
Yeah, we have a
I don't
sales
even-
tax, but no income tax.
We have both.
I don't even know what our tax rate is here in PA for the state income tax, but we have a state income tax, we have sales tax and all that good crap here. Then we also have our local taxes, which the local taxes is just like you work in this municipality, so they can tax you. I think it's up to $52 a year because you're working there. So, like, really, the tax revenue that's being generated by me being in your community every day is far greater than that $52, you jerkwads. And then it turns out if you go down to the city building in each of, because most people don't know this, but if you go to the city building in those municipalities, you can just get that tax back.
Robert Moore said they would have a lot more money if they would quit giving money to trash countries that produce nothing. Sergeant Joe Smith, I get taxed on tools I have each year that I already paid sales tax on them. Ozzy, Illinois income tax is a flat rate. Woods, they would have to change the Washington state constitution to have state income tax in Washington. Goddamn
You
bacon.
lucky sons of gun.
Well, our sales tax, we've got a base sales tax, and then each city will add on to that. So, like
that's
for
a nightmare.
Where I live, it's 8.9%, I think, sales tax.
Yeah, like counties.
Like,
cities live on income tax, counties live on property tax, and states live on income tax.
Yeah,
and the states help distribute the money around. So if you don't have a big city in your state, you're going to be paying taxes. But like Vegas and places with massive industry, they just tax the industries and leave the people alone.
Like, so here, PA, sales tax is 6%. Unless you're in Pittsburgh, then it's 7%, and Philadelphia is 8%. I think Harrisburg is also 7% or 8%, but yeah.
Washington even we have to pay sales tax on stuff we buy on the internet from other states.
Yep. I've actually seen that. So Pennsylvania, we have to pay a sales tax on things that we buy online, but I have a few times been charged sales tax for things of like the sales tax for that state that it's sold in. I'm like, that sucks.
Yeah,
all of a sudden I'm getting charged like 8%. I'm like, oh.
Our attorney general went after other states to force them to charge the sales tax. Basically, it's if somebody comes to Washington State from like from Oregon, and they buy something, you don't pay sales tax if you take that thing back to Oregon, but if you consume it here, then we're supposed to charge sales tax. And for Washington, if I bought a car in Oregon and bring it back, I'm supposed to declare that and pay the tax in Washington on the car that I bought in Oregon. I don't think anybody does, but
well, so that's how PA is. So, and the thing is, when you go to title it, they're going to say, did you pay taxes on this over in Ohio, for example? And if you say yes, they're going to say, do you have a receipt to show that? And you could have paid taxes on that car over in Ohio, but if you don't have a receipt, well, guess what? You're getting paid, or you're paying taxes on it twice then, because Pennsylvania wants their cut.
Woods at Pierce County is 8.1%. Robert Moore, Texas is 8.25%. Sergeant Joe Smith, business personal property tax, it's called. At least tool sales tax was income tax deductible. Governor Bob Ferguson. And Garage Guy, yes, that was me that sent you the email. I shipped your stuff out, so hopefully you should get it fairly soon. I just lost my thought. It was fleeting.
Must have been about time for the bracket.
No, we have not imported the bracket over to the new show yet. We're still getting it packed. Want to make sure that it's securely packed so it doesn't get damaged in transport.
You think with a new show you'd buy a fancy new bracket?
Well, we're on a shoestring budget, so I'm self-funded. I did get contacted by Better Holster asking me if I wanted to work with them, but it's not. I don't do that, so I didn't. I wasn't sure if I should just ignore it or send them a polite thank you for considering me, but a polite refusal letter. Usually I'll just ignore the emails. Gunpowder Beauties out there. Good evening. Yeah, I did not expect this turn to did not have taxes listed as a subject for the chat, but it was interesting. It's kind of nice to talk about that stuff once in a while. Oh, so Gary.
Yes.
Mr. Gary, why don't you let everybody know about anything you have coming up?
Well, let's see. It is let's see, early Sunday morning here where I live. So I should be doing I got some knives to review, some other stuff to review. Of course, every Wednesday, my channel members get to enjoy a members only live stream at 8 p.m. Central Time every Wednesday. And from now until the end of the year, we are giving away one of the knives I've reviewed throughout the year. So one of my channel members will receive a knife every week for the next few weeks. So, and then free for all Friday nights, Foul Territory, and that is at 9 p.m. Central. So we'd love to see anybody and everybody in there then. So that's what we got going on. So thanks for the invite.
Well, thanks for being here. How about you, Barbecue? Anything you want to plug?
I'd just like to say, one, thank you for the invite. Two, Gary did mention his members only chat. And with that, if you were somebody that I was a channel member of, YouTube is not accepting my payment method currently. I don't know why, but it's not. So whenever I get this problem figured out, I will be a member again. But until then, whenever my membership expires, if it's not figured out before that, then you will lose me if you haven't already. So realize it's nothing personal. But with that, I guess that's all I got. Thanks.
I've seen that pop up a few times on other channels where somebody will say, yeah, YouTube isn't taking my payment for some reason. So I don't know if it's a glitch or if you're just suspect. How about you, G-Webs? Anything you want to plug? Anything you got coming up you want to let everybody know about?
I'm going to be plugging a 0% flat tax. So that should eliminate the IRS, and then the government just has to tighten their belt and deal with less money.
Oh, and I did see Ozzy had mentioned way earlier, and I forgot to. I was going to point it out. He said did he pick it up, his 44 Magnum, or did
Yes.
the paperwork?
Oh, we did the paperwork already. I think he's waiting. It says pick it up. Big day tomorrow.
Yeah. So sorry about that. I did see your comment. I just forgot to mention.
I would have thought you talked about reloading today.
Well, I had thought about it. I reloaded some 357. I only did 12 because I want to go to I'm going to go to the range in the morning and check the crimp. So I only did a few, shoot them off, see if the crimp holds. I need to crimp some more. Crimp. And did some 9 and some 40. I won a eBay auction for a 30-06 die set, $14.
Oh, you want reloading stuff now?
Because I've got dies to do 40 or 10. Those are the same die set. 357, 38 special, same die set. 450 Bushmaster. I bought one and I'm waiting to get it. 9 millimeter, and then the 30-06 one that I just won today. So, yeah, I was. Also, a big thank you to Chris from the 740. He was very kind enough to spend some time with me, going over questions I had about reloading. And I wasn't gonna do bottleneck cartridges because I didn't want to get into like annealing and all that stuff. And he's like, "Well, I don't anneal mine. I'll shoot it 4 or 5 times, and then if it cracks, toss it." Like, okay, well, maybe I'll look at reloading some bottleneck cartridges. So I've been having fun. It's great sense of accomplishment when I did my first 100 9 millimeter. I guess that's something rare that goes along with 9 millimeters, feeling a sense of accomplishment. But
Mm-hmm.
It does
my
feel
wife,
really good to throw those in the trash. Proud of you.
Do your hands feel like sore from having to work with the tweezers for that long?
No, I took my time. I
Like one of those microscope things with tweezers, like you're looking at little microscopic things.
removed I've got a Lee 4 turret press, but I removed the center rod, so basically turns it kind of into a single stage. I wanted, remove the powder measure, so I'm doing it all by hand, just to slow everything down while I'm learning what I'm doing. Checking and double checking anytime. If I have to stop for some reason, then I'll double check my measurements. And
Why'd you go Lee instead of RCBS or something?
because that's the one I saw when I bought it. I've been happy with it. It's
a C press.
No, it's a 4 turret. I did almost buy one, a C press. I saw one on eBay for cheap, but it's like, well, before I start buying other presses, I need to learn how to use this one. But I've been having fun and been cleaning brass so I can, reload brass. That's what these are. They're reloads, not hand loads. Well, they're hand loads, but it's brass that I cleaned. So I've been having fun. So we'll take them out. My wife wasn't real happy when I said I was going to go to the range, try them out, see if they explode or not. But I didn't. I forgot the banner.
It is pretty neat once you get yourself a box or whatever that you're going to put them in, and you have some loaded to the one extreme, some loaded to another, the higher extreme, and then some stuff in the middle. And it was a lot of fun going out and shooting. And, it's one thing to go buy 2 or 3 brands of ammo, but it's totally different when you sit there and you load some at this grain, some at this grain, maybe some with this bullet, some with that bullet, and it's just so much more intimate to the end product. So when you go shoot it, you're like just that more in tune with like, okay, these are shooting low, these are shooting right on the spot. And I remember figuring out my sweet spots on my 44 and kind of tuning. It was a lot of fun. It was a whole nother level of shooting. It wasn't fast or nothing, but I'm talking about shooting a 44 revolver every single week when I was working at the range. And it was so fun. Like you only need to shoot 50 rounds to have just so much fun because you loaded those 50 and you're playing with stuff, tuning stuff in. It's just a lot of fun.
I did on the 9. I did, well, it's technically 99 because I dropped a primer, but and I can't find it. But I did half of them and then stepped up a little bit for the other half. I'm not worried right now. I'm not worried about tuning in a perfect for accuracy. It's just, again, kind of learning the process and getting comfortable with it. So I have tweaked a little bit, but I'm not doing like 10 and then bumping up and 10 and bumping up and 10 yet. So but
well, like I said, then the other side of it is 10 with this bullet, 10 with that bullet, 10 with this other bullet, or 10 with this powder, 10 with that powder. Like figuring that kind of stuff out is the infinite depth of reloading. And then you'll start growing your beard out to where it hits your belly, and then you'll get around talking about reloading.
My kind of short-term goal is to be able to come up with just a general load that's works and is fairly accurate, and and then pick one caliber to try and to get fairly accurate, because it gets insane when the how into it you get into powder charge, how much powder, bullet depth, because that how close the bullet is to the lands when it starts off, it'll be more accurate. The depth of the primer,
if you're going to crimp or not.
Yeah, the depth of the primer, and then which primer. I don't want to get that much into it. But
Good luck. You have to get that much into it because you won't be able to buy your normal primers and you'll have to buy something else, or you'll go to the place and it'll be like, oh, this powder's half the money. Like you'll go look and be like, well, I can use that. Maybe I'll try it. It's half the money. Or you'll get gifted something or somebody will give something to you and then you got to try it out. So yeah, good luck. You just set yourself off into a quagmire and you
well,
gotta,
like
you
I
gotta
said,
admit it.
I've got it. I've got my short-term goal that I'm working on now, and then we'll see where it goes from there. But
Well, yeah, either everybody digs it and they do all that, or they put it aside and you start putting a hat on it, and then it's a coat, and then you're putting something else on top of it, and then before you know it, you forget it's underneath the ball there.
yeah, well, that's kind of what I bought it right at the beginning of COVID. All the consumables disappeared.
Oh, you've had it already. I thought you just bought it.
Yeah, no. So it's been sitting. It sits right over there, and it's been over here for I don't know 4 years, 3-4 years, and then I
Were
decided,
you
well,
around when Dead Horse was here?
yeah, I decided, well, I've got it. I might as well at least start decapping, removing the primers. Was doing that, and then was doing some reading. Well, actually, I watched the video from Brownells, the Stephen and Caleb on Brownells channel, and one of them's like, "Yeah, you should get a universal decapper, so you don't get your dyes dirty." So I thought, okay, I'll get a universal decapper, and then I went through and was having fun decapping everything because I could decap all the calibers instead of just, whatever my die set was for. So having fun with that, and then it's like, well, I've got these decapped, so now I'll figure out how I'm going to clean them. Been using a ultrasonic cleaner. Kind of a slow process, but it's stuff that I have, so I don't have to put money into it right now. I can just use what I can, and getting pretty good results because, let me make myself big here. And I know reloading talk is not exciting for most people, but they come out really clean. Hour and a half, just a couple drops of Dawn dish detergent and the Lee one-shot cleaning solution that somebody suggested years ago to me. Just every few of the primer pockets, I've got the Lyman little hand thing for cleaning, and clean them out. And I still have a little more brass to do that I'll probably work on once we finish up with all this.
Somebody should take an exercise bike and take like a band or like a strap off of it, and then have that run a wheel or run a tumbler, and then you could tumble your brass mechanically.
I actually thought about that. There was an ice cream maker that was shaped of a ball that you put in. Or it was either a ball or a cylinder. I don't remember which, but you put your ingredients in and you throw it in the back of your car. So when you're driving it around, it rolls around and makes ice cream.
Huh. I have a ball. It's about the size of a dodgeball, and half of it you fill with ice, and the other half of it you put ice cream stuff in. And it's a rubber ball on the outside, and it's a steel, like pint probably in the inside. I've never used it. I just have it, but I never thought about putting it in a car. But yeah, that would be, especially like in the back of a truck, right? Like just bouncing around the bed.
Yeah.
But yeah, right. Just set it up with I was thinking a 5-gallon bucket and some medium in there though, and just you could sit there doing it by hand. I wouldn't kick it around, but I think then a bicycle would probably be the best thing.
But that's kind of what I'm into now, and I'll throw it in the ultrasonic cleaner for an hour and a half, and then rinse it off, and then put it in a salad spinner to get off as whatever little bit of water, as much water as I can. And I had set it up in front of a heater and put a box on the backside to reflect some of the heat back to keep it on the brass. And then I think Michael Dunn left a comment on the video said he uses a fan. So I switched to a fan, and that does dry the brass a little bit quicker. So I'm using a fan to dry the brass, and pretty good. I actually watched a video. I don't know what channel it was, but I think he had something like 308, and he's like, he was curious on if you had to clean your brass, and so he stopped cleaning the brass and he shot it like 8 times, reloaded it 8 times, and he said he didn't have any problems with it. So I'm not sure how clean your brass actually has to be, and I'm not worried about, there are guys who want theirs to look brand spanking new and sparkly. I don't care about that. I just want it to be clean enough so it functions. I'm not real concerned about the look.
Well, the thing is, if you clean it to metal all the time, you don't get buildup. But if you clean it good enough, then the next time you shoot it, it's buildup. So, it's either you're 3 steps away from buildup all the time, or you're 1 step away from buildup. So I think there's something to be said for cleaning it down because it's not like it takes effort. Just put it in a tumbler and let it go.
Guns and Water said, look for a used food dehydrator. I have been looking for one on eBay. The ones I found, I just didn't want to spend as much as they were asking. But
I'll give you one if you want one.
I got one.
That is something that I've thought about.
Hit me up before Thunder on a Prairie if you haven't got one before then.
Okay.
Seriously.
Yeah, we got brand new ones for you if you want one.
But so once again, thank you to everybody that was out in the live chat participating. And if you're watching, didn't say anything, I do appreciate you being out there. I really do. And don't be afraid to say hi. Let me know that you're there. If you watch this in replay, leave a comment. Anything we talked about, agree with, disagree with. We talked about a bunch of stuff tonight. What's your view on taxes?
Did we say hey to Gunpowder Beauty?
I thought I did.
Oh, okay.
I think I did. Pretty sure I did.
You did.
And once again, there's on the community page, there's a contest that's going to run until 10 p.m. Pacific Standard Time next Saturday. So head over there and check that out. Other than that, hope everybody has a good rest of the night and go do something good.